All right, another episode of CannaeBiz, Shawnee. Summer 2025, messed up year, but I'm talking weather, life, all that kind of stuff. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, it's been a good summer. Weather's been nice. A little bit of travel.
Where are you off to next? Tell everyone.
Uh, I'm off to Hong Kong, and then we'll be in Tokyo and Bangkok for next 2.5, 3 weeks.
And you're planning on smoking weed in all of those locations? No.
Well, I don't think it's legal anywhere anymore.
Oh no. I mean, yeah, because I've been back in Canada now. It's just everywhere, but also not everywhere. Like it seems like some of the stores are sort of struggling. I don't know if it's economy or whatever it is, but everyone I go into is empty. I mean, there's a whole protocol. You got to line up and everything here in Ontario that you go in, wait for someone else. They've got to let you through the little gate, but it doesn't seem to be doing that bustling. I never see like a crazy busy weed store.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been in Canada where there's been more than like two or three people in the whole store at any given time, other than maybe the very first week when it became legal.
Yeah, I think maybe they did it trying to limit it, but it's also like pretty expensive. Like a lot of people, even the bars you notice here, quite empty.
So I just went to the Calgary Stampede and went to one of the concert venues, and it was quite funny. The sign, what was the sign going in? I should have taken a picture. It was no weed, no vaping, no something else. But then I was looking at the sign and I'm like, said nothing about bringing in outside alcohol, drugs, or
Sure.
anything else.
Yeah. Cocaine and scotch are fun.
Yeah, I was like, I didn't want to ask the question if cocaine was okay because I thought that might just lead to an extra pat down.
Oh, the horses love it anyway. You just give it to them, you just give them a little handful. They run faster. And then,
Yeah, well, that's how you win a barrel race.
yeah. Yeah, summer here. I mean, the weather is just shit. I don't know in terms of like cuz it's just been really wet here in southern Ontario. My first summer and winter here in 25 years. But it's really dewy out. I don't know if just cuz we're in the ass clench of all the Great Lakes and it's just moist, always moist, but it just feels particularly wet here this summer.
Yeah, I mean, you're giving me mosquito vibes when I look at you.
Oh, dude, I'm like, there probably are around. I've got so many bites. My ankles look like I got chewed by an alligator. It's quite intense. But yeah, there's so many around, and I think that there's no water. I try to get rid of all of them, and the mosquitoes still come. I could only imagine in northern parts of our great, gorgeous country, just how you'd just be a feast.
Yeah. Well, we've had a few days of rain. It's the same here. But I guess, maybe it's that there's not enough weed in the supply to keep them tame.
I wonder about that because that's one of the things you wonder. Like, could you smoke? I don't know. You were never supposed to smoke citronella or get close to a citronella, but what if there was like a citronella based weed or something that you took? I mean, look, it could be the cure for malaria, but if we had something, the mosquitoes are like, yeah, no thanks.
Sorry, you're
You
not
know,
supposed to smoke citronella?
I think so. No,
Oh,
I
shit.
think there were warnings on it. If you huff too much of it, it was like, because it's pretty chemically, but
Mm,
yeah, something like that. I wonder if there is some sort of strain. We should ask some sort of scientist because that'd be interesting.
it would
I
be
mean,
for
they're saying
sure.
it. They're saying that they've now detected, like, or at least most doctors. I think it's an AI study that weed is good if you have cancer. If you have cancer, weed is good. I mean, smoking not always good. Obviously, if you got like lung cancer or something, but the whole essence of cannabis is good. Which is a good thing.
So basically, weed's only good if you acquire cancer first.
Well, it's not like a superpower team up, but I could see why you're going there. Yeah. Now you have the two of them together. No, I think it's like if you have it, it's good for the symptoms, particularly like if you're hungry, um, and
Yeah, I
also
can
in
see an
pain.
animation, some sort of new animation on Netflix. The cancer and weed team up to be superheroes.
It's the one we've all been asking for, but I don't think anyone has. Now you've mentioned mosquitoes; they're all over. I feel like they're all over me. Bugs all over me, man. Um, yeah.
A little bit
So
paranoid, eh?
superpower. I am a bit paranoid. I wonder what happened. Um, let's talk about Thailand, country you and I both love. But weed wise, man, it's back and forth in there. So it used to be legalized, now it wasn't. Now they're gonna shut it down, even if you had medical stuff. It's one of those countries where you sort of see the perils of when you legalize something like that, just how wrong it can go and just how many people's money can get lost over just red tape.
Yeah, I mean, I think the problem, with Thailand is that it was never really like truly legal. It just was decriminalized to this, like they went from medical to like this kind of gray area, which I still, really don't quite understand what was so gray. But, everyone jumped on it, even though there was risk, even when it was in this gray area. And I think they just assumed it would go into this, path of fully accepted. But I guess the issue is it usually takes a few bad apples to spoil the whole cart, and I think that's what's happened. You've got tourists that basically, you know, took advantage of it, annoyed people, inundated certain tourist areas. That's number one. And number two is you had a ton of, people illegally trying to export this stuff as well, right? They go to Thailand and I think, there's probably pressure from, other governments as well on Thailand. Um, you don't really hear too much about that. You hear about the tourism complaints and all these things, but I never really noticed it in Thailand or in Bangkok. Like you'd see these massive stores, of course. I mean, they were bright, but compared to the rest of how crazy Bangkok is, it didn't really, I wouldn't say it had much more than a blip. But I guess in, areas like Phuket and Pattaya, where you've got maybe smaller, tourist areas and you've got people that are coming with families, I think that was probably where it became too much. And, I unfortunately I think once they go back to this path of where they were before, I think it'll be a very long time before they look at legalizing this again in any way.
Yeah, I mean, it's that whole sort of Buddhist acceptance, but not, then authoritarian crackdown on it. Because it's sort of gone back and forth of what's going to be legal, what's not going to be not. The real losers in it, though, are the people, the Thai people that invest in it as a business. It's like, okay, I can make some money off this, off tourists. I can do this because there are legitimate businesses and legitimate things where the definition and scope and scale of what defined cannabis, what was hemp, was not really explicit for people. So you feel bad
No, and
because
there
they're
there
such
was a
lovely people.
yeah, there was also a lot of foreigners that jumped on this as well, right? I know I've got a lot of friends from Europe that were living there for other reasons, and they brought in their savings to open or invest in businesses because they saw this as a way of being able to stay in Thailand without having other types of employment. They saw this as an investment, a business opportunity, and we've had other guests before, and I'd asked some of them to join this podcast, and a lot of them were reluctant because they didn't really want to be out in the open about their investments that they were doing in Thailand. Part of it was allowing them to stay there maybe semi-gray legally, and others they were concerned about raising too much awareness about what was going on in Thailand, and I think they were probably if you look back at it, they're probably right of their concerns based on where we're at now.
Yeah, I mean, you wonder, even for us making a podcast on this, could it be used further against us trying to get into a certain country? Obviously America, it's illegal federally, but at the same time, it's this. It's too bad. Also, we don't pay on the podcast. That might have been a condition in why they weren't on it. But it does seem so weird that you could be allowed to be something to have legal and then be punished for it later. Um,
Yeah, I mean, we'll never have any problems getting into the US. Trump is amazing and everything he's
yeah,
doing is great and it's fantastic and all of our social media will show that and we'll be fine.
yeah, no, of course. Uh Yeah, I mean other countries. So you look at Europe because I mean like Germany has got it been legal for a couple years now. And I think they made 500 mil last year. They should make 1 billion this year. But still all of Europe, the true legal sort of sense of the word, about the same size as New Jersey. Um, you've been throughout Europe and I mean Switzerland, most people are cool about it. What do you think it's going to take if Europe really wanted or did become sort of fully legal in terms of cannabis across of it? And
I
where would you
think
like to
I think
go?
it takes the UK really is the
Yeah.
I see the UK as being the gate to it really becoming a more common European drug that's accepted. The UK does it. Yeah, I see it kind of eventually becoming everywhere in Europe. And I think part of that is that I think the way the UK views it today still, which is quite restricted. If the UK was to adjust from that position, I think the rest of Europe would follow suit. And not because they're trying to copy the UK, but I would see that as kind of the canary in the coal mine, I guess. If the UK does it, everyone else will probably get there as well.
I mean, we've talked about this before on the other podcast, just how difficult it is to explain why the UK. I mean, they love drugs so much. And the fact is that it seems to be such this dark industry where you can't get it going. Everyone else is doing it. It's the brewers. Is it the companies that control the rights to it? Who is it? Who is the one stopping it? Because when you've got a drug problem in Scotland, and just problems all around, it's like, well, where does the fingers get pointed? Why is it not being accepted there? You know?
Yeah, it is hard to understand. I mean, socially, from a social acceptance point of view, which can sometimes be one of the reasons drugs are slow to be accepted. I mean, sometimes it's that people don't think drugs are okay. But again, you're right. I mean, if you look throughout the UK and specifically in the London area, I mean, drugs are super common. People are quite comfortable talking about them. There's no faux pas associated with them. And I would say more generically, all drugs, not just weed, right? Like people are
Yeah.
quite okay with it. They don't seem to be very secretive about it. They don't seem to think it's a big deal. They talk about it openly with their friends, so it's not really a hidden taboo of any sort. And I would say that applies to people of multiple generations, right? It's not just, a younger generation. All generations seem to be quite open. So therefore, yeah, what is the reason? And then, is it true and as a belief that, if weed was legal, would that slow maybe slow some of the more dangerous drugs from, impacting people that, shouldn't be using them?
I mean, yeah, and it's also creating your own industry for it. I mean, Canada at least was sort of the on the frontier of it, but it should be good that a lot of European countries should look at that data and look at it. And UK should look at it and go, actually, we could have weed shops here on certain corners. It could do good business. You should be able to grow your own. You know, we've seen some horrible experiments in like Portland and places like that in the US where their drug experiments gone wrong, but just simply legalizing this and monetizing it and opening it up and trying to get these other things because just like kids don't watch TV, kids don't smoke weed. From what I've seen, at least in Europe, because they're all on like ketamine or pills or stuff like that. And at least if there was a degree of acceptability, then maybe they wouldn't do the harder stuff. Um, but it's just sort of a messed up thing that UK, because as you say, you go walking in London a couple of weeks ago, it smelled of weed everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. I mean, in Canada, it's been so they're going to pass some legislation here, I guess, because it used to be if you owned a cannabis store, you had to block out your windows so kids couldn't see in. But criminals have realized it's like, okay, well, that's great. So I can break in and no one can see anything. And nobody knows if it's just a shop being retrofitted or a shop being shoplifted. Um, it's interesting to see. I mean, I also wonder if like have all levels of government here. We've been with for a few years now. It's almost a decade, right? So what have we learned? Have there been like big lessons of like the top three things? Whether it's like, oh, maybe we shouldn't in certain provinces put 5 stores together in a fucking 1 block radius, you know? Where the money's coming from, what people are doing. I don't know. Do we have like a full report on what we've done right or wrong?
Well, I think again, I don't have any of the data in front of me, but my observation, and again, it's just personal, would be that I think the amount of cannabis and the legality here and the control of it has led younger people to move away from alcohol and to doing more cannabis. Now, I know that there are definitely people who will tell you that doing cannabis is better than drinking from a health perspective. But it's one of those things that I'm sure there's people that will tell you that overall that, moving one for the other isn't necessarily better. But I would say that's probably the number one thing I've noticed is that there's definitely been a shift to, you know, I don't know if it's a reduction in youth binge drinking, but I'm sure it is towards, doing things like edibles and vaping, which again, has its cons as well. But I think there's definitely been a shift. And again, I don't know if overall from a health perspective that's good for the country. And as I say, I'm not a doctor, but yeah, I would say that's the biggest shift I've noticed is that the availability of cannabis has definitely led youth to probably doing more of it and probably felt less about, going out and trying to get a six pack of beer or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, would you attribute part of that to cell phones? Like the fact that kids are more on their phone, they're less likely to need the bravado or energy to talk to people. I mean, alcohol was, you drank it, you felt a little good, and going out. It's a courage, and a lot of times on the mobile phone, you're like that because it's almost like you're a different personality. Do you think that maybe it was the cell phones that killed binge drinking, or is it just some sort of evolution we've had?
Yeah, I mean, look, there's probably a lot of things. One is probably people are more aware of the downsides of alcohol than they were when we were growing up. You know, we thought alcoholics were okay. They were just part of life. I would say that, probably that's changed a bit, and maybe it is you know, and maybe even COVID itself, the lockdown reduced the social engagement of people to being online that, things like getting together with, a bunch of your mates and, drinking and socializing, maybe that also had an impact in the culture of sitting there and doing, edibles and, smoking or whatever it is, and just chatting with your friends online. And maybe there was less of a need. It's possible. Never thought of the social dynamic of it, but I would say that COVID itself has had an impact across many different things, not just this. But I would say this is probably one of those that impacted both the amount people drank and used these products.
Yeah, I mean, COVID in a way was sort of like a meteor hitting the Earth. There was that impact, factor that sort of spread out across a lot of things, whether it's me not being able to have a sense of smell or just, you and I being a bit older, we know how to deal with that. We were pre-computer, so we knew life, survival, farm stuff. A lot of these kids don't. And so when you get stuck in and just being young, it's you forget how hard it can be. And we both got kids, but toughen up is what we say to them. Toughen up. I guess one of the things I'm always interested in though too, in terms of like when they put the weed in the stores is, if I get this joint, for example, this very berry one that I'd got from general admission, and it says 61%. Who checks? Because I was reading something about someone in the States who was going around, and they actually said that none of the stuff that they tested was actually, what it said on the package. Um, who's there to keep people accountable in a way? Because you don't want the government's going to do it. You still have to make sure that these things are claimed and they're double checked. Because if some cases it's not, and they just sort of pass it through, who's responsible?
Yeah, I don't think that, I mean, I don't know how it actually works. It's a good thing we should look into because I have a feeling some of this is like you're basically, you self-certify some of these products
Mm,
because you see the number of products that are coming out. There's no way we have the federal government testing every single one of these products before it hits the stores.
no.
So that must mean that there is probably spot checks. But yeah, for example, if someone says it's X%, it could be plus or minus considerably.
Yeah,
And if no one's really checking, and if there's not been a crackdown at any point, people will just take more and more chances on this stuff.
yeah. I mean, it's just sort of one of who's policing the police in a way, like who's making sure, because you could say there's a 61%, but again, it's a plant. It varies, right? So there should be some sort of range where it's like it's between this and this, instead of telling me it's 65% or it's 99%, and then it's not. It is interesting also as well that they're going to bring some people are doing some low level experiments in orbit with cannabis seeds to see how they do against radiation. Because even scientists have said that the nature of hemp itself, the plant, which we use for building and everything, if we were to go to Mars, that's one of the bad boys we're bringing, right? Like
Yeah,
it's a hardy plant. You can make rope, you can make buildings out of it.
wasn't that last hemp seed test the one where they were sending up all those people's ashes into space and it accidentally fell out of orbit and crashed into the ocean?
I could be. I haven't read that. That'd be funny though.
It
And
is,
they
I
got
think.
like came
I'll
back.
send you that
Is that's not a
article.
Marvel superhero thing, is it? Because it sounds like it could be one of those.
Yeah, it was supposed to be part of this like something ashes in space type thing, but someone had also put hemp seeds in there to see how they would react to space, and yeah, it didn't quite land properly.
There goes your deposit and probably everything else. I mean, they're talking about everything that cannabis does. Migraines. I know that obviously I used to get migraines when I was a kid, not anymore, but for a headache, I used to have had a girlfriend. I used to have a girlfriend. I got her to smoke weed when she had migraines, and she was like, it got her off of them. She was like, oh my God, this is fucking miracle drug. And I was like, yeah, now let's try having sex on it, like, who knows? But it does do a lot of things. So, I mean, like, I wonder how much we're learning based on this now, because it seems to be that there's so many, you know, applications for this. Is some of the world screwed in the head for not adopting it?
Yep. I mean, look, I think at the end of this whole process of whether it's legal or not legal, I think that, there's enough information out there that does highlight that, comparatively, weed and alcohol, I mean, not saying neither is good for you, but neither one's really worse for you either, right? I mean, if you're gonna allow alcohol to be something that you can continually buy and hasn't been criminalized, what is controlling weed and especially controlling, cannabis at the government level, like what Canada did? How is that a bad thing? I mean, I don't see how that's really a bad thing because you're at least putting in some sort of regulation in the same way that you have with the alcohol industry, and which is much better than it being a free for all, where it could be anything, and you've got black market access to everything. And so if you go by the argument that it's not worse than alcohol, why wouldn't you want to control from a government's perspective where you get tax revenue? You can put regulations around it. And at the end of the day, maybe there are too many, stores in Canada. Well, the free market will clear that out. I mean, nobody can continue to operate at a loss. At some point, it'll minimize to the amount of demand that there is in the market. And at which
Yeah,
point, I think you'll find that you won't find one of these stores in every corner anymore. They will become, they will become subsets of, the LCBO in an LCBO store, or they will become, smaller, kiosks, or they will just become purely like, one store every quarter mile or something like that, whatever it is. But the point is, the market will clear out the amount of it. At the end of the day, though, if you can agree that it's not worse than selling alcohol, then it does make sense for governments to clear the way to simplify cannabis regulation in their countries.
yeah. I mean, Canada's a good standing model for it, just based on one, because each province has done everything differently. It gives you sort of an interesting module for anyone to look at. To go, okay, they've legalized cannabis in Canada. One is a socialist perspective, where the government controls all of the stores and you can only get stuff from here. Two, um, is the other model, which Ontario has, which is the free enterprise, independent shops. And I think there's also that other element of it that in Canada we had so much investment, so much overconfidence from the private sector that they were going to do things right. And I mean, you have companies I think like Tokyo Smoke and a few others just got gut punched by it all, and have had to lose so many different elements of their business, and shutter stores and sell off assets and other people as well. So it'll be interesting, I think, for the rest of the world to sort of what have they learned, and that's why I think when we talked about Europe, because in Spain it's technically legal, Portugal as well, but those places are really big tourist destinations, and you and I have talked about tourism and how the growth of cannabis tourism should be something that is paramount, and how great it would be to be at a cannabis resort in Europe. Let's start with, first off, if you were to open a cannabis resort or place in Europe, what would be the number one place you'd want to do it?
Mm, it's a good question, but it's a good question overall. But I mean, I think it also is one of those things that if it becomes normalized, just like alcohol is everywhere, does the cannabis tourism kind of disappear, right? Because is there a need for cannabis tourism if it's just something that's normal?
No, I think there is, because if you have like a tourist, like a tour agent or a tour guide, they still book people on trips, older people. But a cannabis tourist, I think that the industry there is to say, you want to go to Canada? Here are some cannabis related things you should do. You can go to Windsor, Ontario, hit this shop, and then hit this. It's really fun when you're stoned. That kind of thing. We're hooking people up with a cannabis. I think that's like, even an online agency, you could use an AI to help, but it would help you. We could do that on our website. But if you find a place, tell me a place where it's legal, where you want to go, Denver. You know,
Yeah,
one
no,
stop of it.
yeah, no, I think there is still, I mean, there's still a gap in the market for those types of things. But I think what people can learn from Canada, though, is that, and you mentioned some of the companies, but and I'm forgetting a few of them, but like some of the producers that, were trying to build out in Canada that have gone under or become basically worth
Mm-hmm.
nothing. I think part of it was they also thought as they were building out that their business was going to be transportable to the US. I think the reason that everybody grew so quickly in Canada is that based on the way the wind was blowing, I think they felt that the US was right behind in
Yeah,
legalizing, which isn't the
federally.
case, right? They're not
No.
right behind. And I think that killed a lot of these businesses. I don't think they built their whole business model on the fact that they thought Canada was just going to go bonkers for cannabis. I thought they believed it would be a good market, but I think there was an expectation that things would loosen up in the United States as well.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting, the greed and all that kind of stuff that just sort of went with it. But it's humbling, and obviously, and economically and market humbling to just let them see. It's like, okay, as you say, the people who survive the cockroaches at the end are the ones that you trust. And for me, like there's a store around my area here that they spend a lot on having a lot of product, and the staff are very welcoming. They're very knowledgeable. Those kind of key components that apply to any tourist industry, or any hospitality industry, or things that go far. If you've just got some guy who's stoned opening up, the little rope for you to get across, and he knows enough, but it's still like not there. I don't know. This all seems to be part of it, and the way that it should be evolving in terms of tourist wise, and owning a store.
Yeah, I agree with that.
What about like if Soho House had like a weed store? Because I know Bill Maher and Woody Harrelson own a place in West Hollywood, so that's sort of like a place that people go. I would say that's sort of like a cannabis tourist place. Would you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, I think in some ways that is, that's something similar to like when you go into um, a very amazing cigar lounge, right? Where they've got exotic cigars. And again, depending on the country, if you go to a private cigar lounge in the US and they've got all these great Cuban cigars that are fresh. I mean, that's a big draw, right? Difficult to get. People definitely seek that type of thing out. I mean, you've got magazines like Cigar Aficionado. My tongue twister there.
Aficionado.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And there's a culture around it. And I think the same way, with cannabis. So I do believe that kind of stuff does draw. And if you go into, I was just in a very nice hotel in London, and they had a great cocktail and whiskey bar, or cigar and whiskey bar. So I mean, yeah, I definitely think that those are draws, right? But again, I think they're draws that are for the tourists. They're not for your everyday user, but they're destinations, right? They're like, oh, okay, this is really cool. I'm in this area where there's, something I'm interested in checking out. And there's lots of things that I would definitely check out as well from a drug tourism perspective, if it was available. It'd be some cool stops in Colombia as well. Imagine you get to you get to go into one of the original DEA bus sites or something like that in Colombia. That would be a pretty cool thing to be able to see.
Yeah, yeah, I know. All right, so we'll end on the podcast on. I did mention, if you were to open, say, a cannabis bar or cannabis experience, restaurant or fucking jungle gym or some shit, which country in Europe would you do it in? What would it look like?
I would probably pick I would probably pick the South the south of Spain, Greece or Portugal. Nice weather, blue waters, um, good DJ culture. Yeah, somewhere like that for sure.
I'm going Northern Europe. I'm going like Estonia, somewhere like that, where you could like, you've got caves, you've got an outdoor space, but winter or summer, you could just go and they'd be like warm in the basement, but also like a really cool, trippy, like forest experience that you could just like walk around the forest and the threat of Russians, attacking, but just being stoned and walking around that area, I think would be fucking great.
So we could name it the North and South Toke.
There we go. Oh my God, we've already got it started. Business idea.
Yeah, yeah.
For anyone who's listening, thanks a lot for listening. This has been another episode of CannaeBiz. We'll be doing more. If you have any ideas, products, or just things you want to bitch about in terms of what's gone right or wrong in cannabis, please do contact us. And thanks for listening, everybody.